Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so there we are promoting new and upcoming artists. You may not have heard, because you should really help out their YouTube views. They're sub 1.5 billion views.
Yeah,
I mean,
they need help.
They only need 15 more million to get there, but
amazing, wonderful. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, well done.
Cool. Well done on the word finding.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for participating again.
Yeah, and there's there's a new album, and you should go out and support. But it's that's just such a good song. That's like a perfectly constructed pop song.
Yeah.
That hopefully gets stuck in your head. So
all day.
Appreciate the Carly.
You know what we should do?
Chat.
We should go out to Branyan Plaza and just listen for the number of folks singing "Call Me Maybe." The day's earworm. Okay, if you're in the library, start singing really loudly. Okay, folks are still coming. Welcome. But we are going to get started. So here we go. We're going to do some stuff, but we're also going to do some stuff that we were usually trying to cram in at the and I love the way that we've set up today's class because it makes way more sense.
Because when you procrastinate on Monday, for sure that means there's no problem today.
It's gonna be fine.
There was space available, right?
We'll try it. We've never done it this way, but we're gonna try it, and it's totally gonna work.
It's totally gonna work.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be like, "Oh, Smith, stop talking. We need time."
No. They'll be talking.
Okay, they'll be talking. Here we go. Yeah. So, okay, we ended off last time talking about carrying capacity and really kind of breaking apart that graph. And I'm really glad that we spent some extra time on that. And the next kind of topic that we're going to introduce to you with respect to sort of the population, level of biological organization is the idea of things that might control the size of the population. And so there are things that kind of affect the size, right? So we talked about availability of resources, and we talked about the size of the actual surface area, and we talked about a whole bunch of things. So imagine if we wanted to change that number sort of more intentionally or more deliberately. So we call that population control or population management. And this part, so I hope you're able to pay attention. We are recording. It's kind of a tricky concept, but I want to kind of go through it, and then I want to try to apply it to something that we probably all know and love, or at least I hope, because I'm a huge zombie fan, and so we're going to do the zombie unit. But here's the theory, okay? So if you want to control a population or change the abundance, so the total number of individuals in that population, in that space, you can use a density-dependent control factor or a density-independent control factor. And what it depends on is the density of the population. So when we're talking about density, we're not just talking about total numbers, but we're talking about sort of total numbers and how close they are to each other, okay? So within a set space, basically. And what depends on the density is not the total effect, but rather the mechanism by which the population is controlled. So the effectiveness of your control treatment depends on the density. So the more dense the population, the more effective it is. And I totally expect most of you to be going, WTF? But here's what it looks like. So here's the definition. Density-dependent factors affect per capita birth and death rates in a way that depends on the population density. So the effect is stronger when the population is more dense, okay? And what might be a really good example of this? We've all just kind of been through it, or we're not even done being through it. Sorry. Whoa. Well, we're going through it right now. So if you think about the way that COVID-19 is spread, it is dependent upon the density of the population. So it spreads more effectively when people are closer together, when the density is higher. Okay. If we spread out, then COVID-19 transmission drops off significantly. Okay. So it is density dependent. Its effectiveness of spread is dependent upon how dense it is. There are also density independent factors. So this basically means that the population control doesn't depend on how dense the population is in terms of its effectiveness. It is either effective or not, but it has nothing to do with how dense the population is. It has to do with other things, but just not density dependence. So here's, again, you'll have these two slides and you can kind of toggle between them when you're trying to review this stuff. The factors affect per capita birth or death rates in a way that is not dependent on population density.
Throw in the chat what kind of things might do
Yeah,
that.
do you have any ideas what might not be dependent?
We kind of gave you the density dependent one. Well, we didn't give it to you.
You've been going
through it. But what other kinds of things
might change a population abundance without really being dependent on the density? Cool. Okay. What else? Ooh, good. Food shortage, access to water,
climate change. Yeah, a natural disaster.
Human impact.
That's
good.
Kind of a nice big
yeah.
Lâche au fort, au cat. That's a nice kind
really
of a catch-all.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we've got some examples here.
A meteor hitting the Earth.
A meteor hitting the Earth. Amazing.
Yeah.
Density independent. Really good. Okay, cool. So what we want to do is we want to ask you a question. Now, I am a big zombie fan. I bet you that someone out there knows way more about zombies than I do. But what I would like you to do is, for a moment, think about this. Would a zombie, so just, we're going to like actually awkward pause for a minute, okay? Because I want you to think about your favorite zombies, and there are many types, right? I want you to think about your favorite zombies, and would a zombie apocalypse represent a density dependent or independent human population control treatment? So awkward silence, just think about it for a second. That sounds like I'm peeing. I'm really just pouring coffee.
Better move that into frame.
Okay. Okay. Are you ready? So, density independent on the left-hand side, density dependent on the right-hand side, and stamp away. Madigan, Stephen, density independent. I'm gonna want to talk to you about stuff. Good. Okay. Density dependent. Good. And no more for density independent. Are you thinking, what about? If you have any whatabouts, pop them in the chat. Sam, you're super talented. Amazing.
Is it just a mouse or a stylus that you've got?
I hope it's a stylus, because if that's mouse drawing, that's
mouse drawing.
Bananas. Yeah. I mean, it's bananas anyway, but like, okay. So most of you are going density dependent. So
here we go. So there is some whatabouts. So what about the snap from Infinity War? So Smith Googles Infinity War.
Infinity War. Okay. And what else? Any whatabouts? And I'm writing stuff down because, like...
Oh, I see. So I thought it was you like the Avengers?
The Avengers? Yeah, the snap. Is that what you mean? Okay, that's amazing, because that's density independent for sure, right?
But it affected density.
It totally affected density, but the mechanism, the treatment, the snap was density independent. Really good. Okay, so let's start with density dependent then.
It's a stylus. The older ones were with a. That's great.
That's great.
Brains.
Okay. Let's start with density dependent. So give us in the chat or on the screen, tell us what the reason is that a zombie apocalypse would be density dependent. So pop it in the chat. What is the why? Why is a zombie apocalypse density dependent?
The answer is not Rick Grimes. And I know that's not what you were proposing, but I thought that'd be fun. More people, more infection. Must be attacked by a zombie to become one. Zombies bite humans to spread its disease, so it needs more people to spread. Zombies, more dense, more humans to be turned. The dense, the more people to bite. So some kind of positive relationship between biting, being bitten, and rates of infection.
Yeah. Transmission. Good. Okay. Yeah. So the effectiveness of the transmission, the ability to spread zombiness, increases with density. So if we use that argument, then we're all good. Can you think of a zombie scenario that is density independent? And if you haven't seen Walking Dead, spoiler alerts are coming, but I feel
it's like a spoiler alert from like 8 years ago.
Yeah, like I feel like the statute of limitations on spoiler alerts for The Walking Dead is like over. But there's a situation in The Walking Dead, or there are some other ones. Z Nation, where it's density independent. What's the mechanism of spread? Yeah, good. Right. Yeah. Good. Yeah, nice. Okay, here we go in the chat. So if the zombie infection is not through physical transmission, if it was some sort of mutation, an airborne virus through the water, excellent.
Have you guys seen Pontypool? Has anybody seen the Canadian zombie film Pontypool? If you live near Peterborough, south of Peterborough, check out Pontypool. It's a zombie film that involves transmission by sound.
Read the book. Good. Oh, you read the book. Okay. I was like, read the book. Okay. So for those of you who are like, I don't know anything about zombies, I'm never going to understand this. It's not about zombies, right? So the idea is...
And Jaws is not a film about a shark.
That's right. Okay. So here's the idea. In the second season, I think it is, of The Walking Dead,
who knows?
Right? It's discovered that everyone has the virus. Okay, everyone is infected with zombiness, and getting bitten simply gives you the infection necessary to kill you so that you turn into a zombie. And so this is like complicating things a little bit, right? Z Nation was, I think it was a nuclear thing, right? That just kind of turned a whole bunch of people into different types of zombies, or some like big apocalypse thing. I haven't finished it because I got bored. But anyway, the idea then is that, turning into a zombie has nothing to do with close contact or bite to bite, but rather just you turn into a zombie. So it would be density independent in that case. What the reason why we're dealing with zombies is because we're trying to get you to really focus on the mechanism, the way by which the population control treatment spreads, rather than saying, okay, by disease it's this way, and by pesticide it's this way. We don't want you to memorize a list, so we're going to just use one type of thing, zombies, and show you that the way that it happens is really what we mean by density independent or density dependent. Okay.
Yeah, so Stanl04 is saying, but then it's still dependent because you're more likely to turn into a zombie by a human contact. So there's modifiers.
There's modifiers.
For sure.
Totally. Which means you understand it,
yes,
which is great.
So exactly. So you're yes-anding, which is great.
Yeah.
And so that's important.
Yeah, totally. Really good. Okay. Totally, there are modifiers, there are scenarios, and it kind of all depends, right? And this is the type of thinking that we want you to engage in, right? Rather than just memorizing lists of things. So that you can ask yourself, okay, does it become more effective at transmission if density increases or not? Right?
So when you're considering forming or reforming or giving the marching orders to the study group, the group that you're going over and preparing for the next topic test in the ecology section about what kind of questions are you going to work on regarding dependence, density independence, or some way to get that going would be to go through and all of you in your group come up with a list of zombie films or TV series or books or whatever, and then give some ecological scenarios and then ask some questions.
Yep.
So you agree on the list of the pop culture and the scenarios, and then you each go off into your corner and come back with 5 questions for each other.
Yep. That's great.
And then you get to be literate about, maybe you learn about somebody else's. You learn that World War Z with Brad Pitt, that's based on a book. The book is actually better. And the book was written by the son of Mel Brooks. And if you don't know who Mel Brooks is, that's the homework for this weekend, because that's a lot of good entertainment.
Yeah. The book is really good. The audiobook, I used to listen to it walking, like taking my dog for a walk. Amazing. So fun.
Like dashing from behind tree to tree.
Yeah. It's really, the book is nothing to do with the movie. So good. Okay.
They took some scenarios from it. But then they had Brad Pitt. So what are you going to do? Have a movie about Brad Pitt and then not focus on that splendid example of humanity? It's like the camera, it's like Brad Pitt's over here and the camera's like, oh, who's that?
Who's that? Someone else. Okay. Here we go. And now we're going to mess you up a little bit more, because what we're going to do is we're going to present you with some data. And imagine that you're this like zombie scientist. Imagine that you're Brad Pitt.
Scientist who studies zombies. Not.
Oh, yeah. a scientist who studies zombies, and you get some data on the spread of zombiness. And you're asked to tell us whether or not this is evidence of density dependence or density independence. Okay. And yeah, so I'm going to give you the spread, the data, and you're going to tell me if you think it's density dependent or density independent. Okay, we already did this in the chat. There we go. Here we go. Let me know. Is this evidence of density dependent or independent?
Oh, that's some interesting scenarios. The more recent ones when they get off the island. And that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's good. Oh, good.
Good. I'm glad you're disagreeing. Go. Let me know what you think. Excellent. Okay. So we're split, like almost 50-50. Do you want to weigh in? Anyone else? Okay. This happens all the time. Okay. We get data and we're like, it doesn't fit perfectly. I don't understand what's going on. What part of this map is sort of taking a lot of your focus? Attention. Which part? Like, what part are you looking at and going, I don't know?
That's amazing. So I've all kinds in the chat. I say density dependent except Nebraska, which does not fit. Nebraska, bottom right, southern. I need more data.
Amazing. Okay.
That's cool.
Michelle's like, look at Hawaii. Yeah. What's going on there? What else?
There's interesting observations about the bordering of water.
Yep.
And the observation that this isn't a predator-prey relationship. The humans fight back, so that complicates how we have to view this.
Totally. Okay. This is really good. Thank you. Yeah.
Remember, prey fight back.
Prey fight back.
Yeah. As much as they can.
I feel ready. Like, I feel like...
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
it. What's that?
Let's talk about it.
Okay. So, yeah. This happens all the time in biology, right? We have lots of data. We have a graph, and it's not perfect, right? And we always, like in high school and in university, we always get to work with perfect data. We never get to work with messy data. And these are messy data. So you're focused on Nebraska. You're focused on Hawaii. You're like, everything else fits for density dependent. But it doesn't fit with Nebraska, like what's going on with Nebraska. So we've said this before, but this is really an opportunity to go, you know what, like 90% of the data totally support a density dependent. And our brains always focus on the what about, right? Or the small little bit that kind of confuses you. But instead of being confused and go, no, the rule doesn't fit. What a biologist does is they go, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder what's going on in Nebraska. Okay. So all around the coastline, we have high density population. There's more zombiness in there. What might be going on in Nebraska?
And Minnesota.
And Minnesota. What are some of the sort of the qualifiers we said? The things that might have happened such that there is a high level of zombiness in Nebraska.
I've got an idea.
What?
So
Zombie zoo.
Yeah, zombie zoo. The state government in Nebraska was like, really, I mean, we're protesting too much. If we could all just get back to normal.
It's mild zombiness.
This is mild zombiness. I mean, who amongst us hasn't like been a zombie? So
freedom.
Yeah,
Sorry.
They didn't wear their masks. Exactly.
Yeah, they didn't wear their masks.
They took away their
super good. Maybe they're coming from Canada. Yeah. Super good. Maybe a whole bunch of people from New York went to Nebraska, so they artificially increased the density. Maybe a bunch of things.
So there's a whole bunch, and then we rule or kind of rope in Hawaii and say lots of things that actually came up during the first parts of COVID with island population. Some of you have noted in the chat that density-dependent effects, once released into an island population, could be spreading like rapidly, really rapidly.
Yeah.
Because of the captive nature of any of those populations, in this case, amongst the marine environment. And so maybe some glitterati from California went infected on the plane to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so, and we saw that in the first waves of COVID, where island nations in the South Pacific were like, stop. Nobody arrives.
That's right. That's right. You know, the flight to Hawaii is pretty long. A whole bunch of folks could have been turned into a zombie, and zombies could have been released into Hawaii by the time the flight arrived, right? So the whole
Station 11, the plane on the tarmac.
Oh man.
That's
Have you read Station 11?
Go read Station 11 this weekend. Emily St. John Mandel.
Yeah.
I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah. The miniseries is excellent.
And different and not
exactly the same.
We've been talking in the chat about books being better than the films. This is a different adaptation. They're both brilliant. In my opinion.
And a Canadian writer who is freaking amazing. So, okay. I hope you understand. And I'm really, thank you so much for leaning into the zombie thing, because that makes me feel really good. Let me know if like your, zombies are not like the thing that resonates with you. You need us to find like another analogy.
We register and we hear the fact that a lot of you are talking about some of the last trilogy, the Chris Pratt-esque and the Bryce Dallas Howard parts of the the Jurassic series.
Okay.
There's some
we can update.
We can update.
We have to watch those things. There. That'll be our homework.
Yeah.
Okay.
So density dependent in high heels sprinting. If you are Bryce Dallas Howard, you are, well, very fast.
Okay.
I've clearly seen at least one of them.
Okay. Super. Thank you. And I hope that becomes clear. So 2 messages, right? Density dependent, independent. It's dependent upon the mechanism of transmission, not the overall effect. Okay. And when you get a series of data and there's like 1 or 2 points that don't fit, don't throw away the theory. Use it as a means to focus in and ask more questions. Those are the 2 things that we really want to kind of...
Yeah, the exception doesn't disprove the rule.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes it more interesting and beautiful. Yeah,
helps you understand it.
Yeah, okay.
So in the chat, some of you had noted, somebody had noted a while ago that the U.S. military has plans in the event of an actual military attack. And that's true. And in fact, prior to COVID, the CDC used to use a zombie attack as a way to talk about plannedness. That was the screen one ago.
Oh, there.
Right. And so now that's probably out of date because they have kind of bungled one. So maybe we should focus on the actual example. Now, as you're going through and wanting to think about density-dependent and independent variables, this is kind of a neat program that you can get. When you get the PDF, this is a link. You can click on it. But it's something where you can change. Those are variables at the bottom there with the infectiveness or the density, the infectiveness, the degree of the symptoms, the initial number of zombies, the inoculants. You can model how quickly things will move through a population. And you could take each one of the zombie kind of principal zombie scenarios and say, okay, so how is Les Revenants different from 28 Days Later? And then you could have a big discussion about, well, is 28 Days Later actually a zombie film? It's not, I don't believe, because it doesn't, they're not slow, they're fast. But as my last aside about zombies, if you haven't seen Les Revenants, watch it in French. It's fantastic.
You know what? I just thought of an assignment for a future 1070 course. Watch all these movies and model.
Yeah, that's what we...
And we'll do who's the most deadly zombie.
Yeah. And
that'll be the end of the course.
We could make a bracket, a competition bracket.
So okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's actually, there's the exam.
Well done. That's the exam. That would be so fun. Okay. Maybe not.
Maybe not this year.
Go.
No, don't.
Save yourself. Don't go. No. Okay.
An opportunity for a meme.
Yeah. Opportunity for a meme. There we go. Cute kitten. Go. Okay. Next.
Train to Busan. Yes, I didn't put in that Train to Busan.
That
awesome.
was great.
Yeah.
So good. Let's move on to another topic. Except for, here's your homework. This is the homework that we were going to do for last time. So just take a look. Homework, you can just read them. They kind of help you work through and connect these two concepts of carrying capacity and density dependent and independence. And then we have another, so it's a 2-parter, and the instructions are all there, and we'll take it up next class, okay? So on Monday, we'll go through these things together, and then we'll ask you a question as usual.
And now for something
completely different. Okay.
But staying with a pop culture reference.
Well, and talking about population control or population loss, right? So what happens when a species is extirpated? So we've talked about reducing population abundance, which was the density dependent and independent. So not totally completely different, but just adding on to the idea of what happens when we completely remove a species, right?
Yep. It's not
My segue was okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I on the continuum of Monty to Python, I think we're more towards...
Okay, so to do this, what we want to do is we want to take you to Antarctica, because amazing.
We have an unlimited budget, so saddle up.
Yeah, I did once pitch a field course to Antarctica. It didn't go over well. So Antarctica, an amazing place. And one of the reasons why, from a biological or an ecological perspective, Antarctica is an amazing place is because it is a relatively simple place. It lacks ecological complexity. And having these places available to study really help us understand some of the driving variables. And we'll show you why simplicity or less complexity is really important. By first setting up an Antarctic food web, okay? Kind of a food web, a relationship web, let's just say. And we're going to bring you to Happy Feet. Now, I hope that Happy Feet is still like within your pop culture kind of world. If it isn't, then just think about penguins. But if, and Happy Feet too, terrible.
Happy, oh, you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
The second one.
The second one.
Yeah.
Boo for Danielle. Oh no. Okay. Book. Is there a book? No.
Oh, I know. Well,
is there a
book?
Something?
Are there books about Antarctica?
Oh yeah.
Have you written one?
Yeah.
Who might have copies?
Did we?
Thank you. Well, yes, and.
Yes, and you? Okay.
Yes, and.
So I wrote a book about Antarctica, and the Pope has it.
And you found out about it
on Facebook.
Not because Frank wrote you a letter.
That's right. No, Frank didn't write me a letter.
Estimado Doctor Jacobs. Mucho gusto para señor.
The Heritage Minister of Argentina gave the Pope my book as a gift because the Pope is Argentine. And my book is published, or was originally published in Argentina. And there you go. So it's in the library. You can get it out of the library at the university.
Well, like the papal library. Is it in our library
It's in the papal library, and it's in our library.
Now, there's a couple of good
the two most important libraries. I know. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But anyway, there's a photo of the Pope holding my... Anyway, there you go. Okay.
Feel happy.
You feel happy?
Q-Aloe black.
I think it's weird. It's just a little weird, like the relationship between Jews and Catholics. Not amazing. So, okay, go.
Why?
Too soon. Okay, now, what we want you to do in rapid fire in the chat, and maybe Sam, you can draw it, is let us know all of the components that you can think about in an Antarctic ecosystem. So think about the life, think about the abiotic components, and just like rapid fire them for us in the chat. Good.
Ice. Fish. Polar bears.
Lichens.
Wait a second.
No polar bears.
Wait a second.
Not in the Antarctic.
That's what our kids do. Wait a second.
Yeah.
Coldness.
Coldness. Walrus. No walrus.
Bacteria. Oh, I love it.
Ooh, good one.
Narwhals.
No.
Nope.
We're in the South Pole.
Lichen? You're liking it.
Orcas.
Yep. Orcas
Humans
for sure.
sometimes. So we're good. Light. Good. Lack of it.
Seals.
Ice caps.
Albatross.
No shrubs.
No.
Good. We're learning. What else?
Melting
Life
ice.
that can
Krill.
be krill. Glaciers. Very good. Icebergs. Humpback whales.
Yep.
Excellent. What else? Dirt. Good.
Fish.
Fish.
Dirt, rocks.
No
puffin.
puffins. That's what's wrong with Happy Feet too. No puffins.
Does anyone mention penguins?
No.
Because they're there.
Because they're there. There's a lot of penguins. Okay.
Elephant seals.
Salinity.
Gulls.
Gulls. Good.
Penguins.
Albatross. Yes. Excellent.
Penguins.
Penguins. Penguins. Okay. Foxes. No foxes.
What about Hugh Jackman? Hugh Jackman. He's
Leopard
there.
seals. Petrels. Damn, how did we miss penguins? Some sort of green plant? Only 2 types of green plants. Okay.
Weasels? No, Elijah Wood. Wait.
Okay. Super. So, thank you, Jana. That's the best looking penguin ever. No. Okay.
The Larcho the thing. Yes, strictly true, but not in this universe.
So we've got penguins. We've got krill. We've got orcas. We've got leopard seals. Skuas, which are amazing. They're kind of like half eagle, half gull. Elephant seals. Humpback whales. Fish and jellyfish and invertebrates. We've got ice and water and salinity. And we've got phytoplankton as depicted by the green ice. And that is kind of pretty much it, right? There's not much else, which again means simplicity.
There's some colembla.
There's some colembla. Yes. Okay, now what we want you to do using your lines or your pens is create a relationship web. So connect all the things that have some kind of relationship with each other. It could be a this eats this lives in that, this requires that. So go ahead and give us a relationship web. Tardigrades. Lovely. Why is the ice green? Because it has phytoplankton in it.
Is the next topic test going to be the same format? That's come up a couple of times, so Abrams 11.
The next topic test, we noticed that you're all not super amazing or comfortable yet with short answers, so we're going to be focusing on the stuff that you did way better in, so it's going to be just true and false stuff this time around. But we are going to introduce short answer in the next one, but we want you to, pop up your grade a little bit, and so for topic test 2, it will only be true and false. Okay. Amazing. Good. Right? And from this, I said simple. I hope you can recognize that it doesn't necessarily mean without complexity as well, right? It looks complex. If we had to tease these relationships apart, it would be challenging. And that's why being an Antarctic biologist is challenging, right? But it is...
That and funds.
Yeah, and expensive and really fun. Oh my God, Antarctica is amazing. Okay. Good. So you did good.
We need to clear.
We need to clear. And if we were to kind of summarize what you've done, it would probably look a lot like this, right? And we can learn a ton from food webs, okay? Not just, about what eats what, but what probably has bigger population abundance than other species. So if we were to take a look at this, circle for me a species here that you would anticipate would have to be in higher numbers in order to have so many relationships.
Much love for the krill and the phytoplankton.
That's really good, right?
I love it.
I love it. You immediately started out with krill because it is eaten by so many things. And then you were like, well, then if krill is a really big number, phytoplankton must also be, even though there are fewer relationships, just because krill is so big, whatever krill eats is also going to have to be so big. That's exactly right. Super good. Some of you have focused on skuas, and I think it's because of all the arrows going to it. But remember, those aren't skuas being eaten by something. Those are skuas, sorry. Oh, no. Yes. You always have to, yes,
Words.
Sorry. You always have to follow the direction of the arrows, right? And in a food web, they can be reversed. So yeah, always start with like the bottom feeders or the top feeders and use that as a means of getting around. So yeah, so skuas are, krill is being eaten by leopard seals. And leopard seals are being eaten by skuas. So skuas are eating dead leopard seals, right? So you have to kind of go back and figure out like how it all works together, right?
This is kind of like your beta diversity indices, where they can be similarity indices, a number that gets bigger as it's more similar, or dissimilarity indices, where it gets smaller as they become more similar. And so in this case, just think about it. You're maybe intuitively thinking about it as who's eating whom. It may be modeling the energy pathway. Yeah. Whereas the energy from the krill is going that way.
That's right.
Which would be the opposite of this is eating krill. Yeah. They're showing you the same thing.
That's right.
It's the context of how are you investigating the system.
Thank you. What Smith said. Smith said it better. Okay. And what happens if we were to get rid of krill? So krill has been identified as like a super important component of feeding things. Imagine that we were to extirpate krill. And this is kind of a real scenario because there are some countries that are in the process of like figuring out how to take away all the krill and use it for production of dog food and cat food and other things. So yeah, you're kind of crossing out penguins, you're crossing out jellyfish, you're crossing out all of these things, right? And these things will definitely be affected. But what I'd like to suggest is it's not always this like massive collapse, that there is some kind of plasticity within a food web such that you might expect different outcomes than just this absolute catastrophe, okay? And so imagine then that we take away krill and things are hungry, so they're going to be seeking out different sources of food, right? So it might not be an immediate collapse, and it might be slow enough such that things can kind of adjust and shift, and maybe not, right? So it all depends, right?
There's some really good thoughts of shifting and replacement and reliance. These are, I'm looking at your verbs in terms of replacing, reliance, shift. That's amazing. Collapse. Those are all really good. Green sea. Yep. Yeah. RIP.
Yeah.
Really
exactly.
good.
Super. So things can shift. And yeah, maybe we'll lose penguins, right? But maybe leopard seals will be darn good at finding other sources of food. And then maybe over time, because leopard seals were eating penguins, then, 20 years, 30 years, a couple of generations later, we start to see a reduction in leopard seals. Okay. So
Suresh has a comment. I was under the impression that it's a massive collapse sort of event, and I guess it's way more complicated. In this case, so yes,
and
it will be more complicated, and we'll come up against this in the next few slides. Our understanding of food webs is often very simplified. There's a reason we've started with this example down in Antarctica, because a simplified version is actually very close to the reality, because the number of players in the play is not so high.
Yeah.
So it is more complicated, particularly in more diverse food webs. But would this be a massive collapse? It would be freaking catastrophic. Like, it would be awful.
Yeah. Okay. This is an actual Antarctic food web. So it's not much different than what we've done with Happy Feet, right? We have krill, we have a whole bunch of seals, we have some flying birds, some squid, some fish, and some seals and some penguins and some whales. And that's it.
So these arrows are energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, these are energy flow. Exactly. Okay.
Elephant seals will never die.
They're awesome. Oh my God. They're up to 5 meters long. They are amazing.
How do they smell?
They smell not nearly as bad as a fur seal.
Which is a super relative. That's like, oh, thank you. Good.
What I loved most about the elephant seals, the babies, when you go on the beach, like they make these huge harems, right? So they're all just like laying out on the beach, and then there's the male, the bull, and then about 100 females that he's like controlling, right? And then they have their babies. And then if you lie down on the ground, the babies come right up to you. And the babies weigh like 200 pounds, right? So they come up to you. You're so cute. Yeah, they come up to you, and then they try to like snuggle up next to you. And then one time, one of them crawled on top of me. and of course you don't move. And it just like, yeah. It had a nap right on top of me. It was adorable. Okay. So thinking like an ecologist, and you can think about this and try to answer it yourself, but the idea is basically like there's some potential nuance here. There's not just this automatic, oh my goodness, it would collapse. There may be some other options that you could explore, and what would you need to see in order to accept one of these as being what happened in this scenario, right? Okay.
And so we've modeled a very simplified food web, and this is an example from the literature that I and some other friends wrote, where we took a food web that we already thought was kind of complicated, and that's the fan at the top, where a species of tree here is eaten by a bunch of herbivorous insects that are themselves eaten by a bunch of predatory insects. And we thought that was already pretty complicated, but we could tell which were the important players in the play. And that was until we used DNA to look at identifying who the players in the play were. And that led us to the fan at the bottom, which has many more nodes, some of which they still have important players in this play. But one of the things that we learned was it's a lot more complicated than we had previously imagined.
I'm looking at this triangle here, and it's there as well.
So there's multiple trophic levels here. So we have the plant, the tree in the middle, and then we have the herbivores, and then we've got a bunch of primary parasitoids. So those are insects that eat the herbivorous insects, the caterpillars, and then we have hyperparasitoids, and so those are insects that are flying around looking not just for the tree on which the caterpillar sits, but the tree on which the caterpillar sits, on which they can smell the caterpillar has already been infected by the other species of parasitoid. Wow. And then she unsheaths her long ovipositor and inserts it in the caterpillar and looks around inside the body for the developing embryo, and then it's like, egg for you.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot.
That's an egg for you.
Okay.
And it's also complicated in the fact that when you look at these, we're often using, so that last one was at a speed, recalibration of these webs changed when we understood who, I called it who the players in the play were. The playlist became more complicated. Most of the time when we model food webs, we're doing it at such a coarse level. It's like at the phylum or the class level. We're just like, we have big boxes of like annelids. And it's like, annelids? Like, which is my first question. And so here is a list of food webs in a marine system that is at a phylum level. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So it's like super coarse. So it's like echinoderms. Which? Diatoms. Okay. Which?
And
complicated.
Remember how we said that Antarctica is nice and simple? And we did our food web and a bunch of things, our relationship web. So this is a food web that was done for the Grand Banks, just off the coast of Newfoundland. And it's complicated.
Wouldn't that it were so simple?
It's complex. And what you can see, though, are some interesting things. So kind of squint your eyes a little bit and just kind of focus in on some of the like more dense areas, right? And what I see when I look at this is right at the center, just like we had krill with lots of relationships, we have cod with lots of relationships right here, okay? And also capelin. But let's focus in on cod because that's really sort of the darkest area. And we can see that there are lots and lots of relationships with cod. So what we want to do is we want to use cod now as a real-life Canadian example of some of the things that we were talking about in Antarctica. And we want to introduce the idea of complexity. Because not only, is this an interesting case study, it is one that had a dramatic impact on Canadians, and specifically on families that made their money and their economy off of fish. So this is a historical graph, well before your time, but maybe you've heard about what happened.
Remember, we have a bunch of students who are from Newfoundland and Labrador,
so you know exactly what happened,
what we're talking about,
right? So basically, everything was going well for the economics of cod and the cod industry.
I'm pointing over here as if they're all sitting.
Like right over there.
I imagine you sitting over
here. And all of a sudden, it didn't go very well. And this was the result of many things. Lots and lots of serious conversation among politicians and fishers and scientists. And there's a lot to learn about the way that those three groups communicate and should communicate in the future. But basically, there was a massive collapse in the cod fishery round about the mid-1990s. And the story that was being told in the media was this story, was that the gray seals were eating all of the cod before the fishers could get them. So that led to a cull of gray seals. So gray seals were removed, they were killed in order to bring back the cod. That was the story that was being told, and that was the political action that happened. It turns out, though, that what actually happened is more complex than that. And the reality, it seems, that fishers, and not just fishers from Newfoundland, international ships were coming in as well, and they were taking an incredible amount of cod. It was a bit of a disaster with respect to the harvest. And politicians were not good at controlling and making sure that it stayed within the economy of Newfoundland. And scientists were saying we need to do this, and politicians weren't controlling, and fishers were saying we need to control, and yet politicians weren't doing it. So it was a total population management nightmare, right?
So many bells.
So many bells and whistles. So what was happening, it turns out, that the fishers, international fishers, Newfoundland fishers, were taking too much from the stocks of cod, and the gray seals were being outcompeted by the fishers, such that they shifted their focus on smaller fish for prey, and their population actually went up. So the population of gray seals was increasing, but not because they were taking all of the cod. It was increasing because they were shifting their realized niche, bringing from last time.
See
what I did there? They were shifting their realized niche to focus on a different source of prey. And so they were doing quite well because that reduced competition with fishers who were taking the larger fish. The fishers took too much fish, and it caused the collapse of the cod fishery. So it's complicated. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave it off there. We are going to ask you to take a look, though. This is a simplified version of that complex food web that we showed you for the cod, but it's a little bit more complicated because we have cod in 3 places. Okay, so take a look, spend some time. We're not going to take it up next time because we're going to do the zombie homework next time, but this is the homework that comes from this particular small unit. Yeah. And then here's your question. So this will be for the time after. We'll remind you about this one, but if you're interested at all in working ahead, then there you go. And with that,
be kind.
Thank you.
Be kind to yourself, be kind to others.